From an early age my hobby was electronics. I built a crystal radio when I was 11. I got the magazine Practical Wireless and built many projects using my paper round money. We went to an open day at RAF Ashfield. They had a jet fighter with the nose cone open showing the radar and electronics. I was fascinated and decided to enlist as an electronics technician. After an intensive medical and color-blind test I was given a rail warrant and went to an RAF training centre near Oxford for 5 days of aptitude tests. I had no problems with the tests but I was not accepted. There were 30 boys in my group, only 2 were accepted. Both had fathers in the RAF. So I was offered a job with Hawker Siddeley Aviation at Brough as an electronics technician subject to passing O-level maths, science, English. I failed English. Back then it was pass or fail and I think it was my bad handwriting that let me down. Later I found out my mom worked for one of the directors of Hawker Siddeley and So I signed on as unemployed but they soon found me a job with the Sunbeam Neon and Tubelamp Co. as apprentice electrician. We did neon signs, rewires of houses, banks, churches. I did the electrical rewiring of the church back around 1968. We used a special cable called Pyrotenex which was fireproof and very long-lasting. The cable was specially made with a grey cover to blend in with the church stonework. When I was working there, Frank Frost, a big chubby local builder, climbed up the spiral stairs every day to wind the clock. He loaned me a huge ladder and I climbed up to the top of the nave arch facing the altar, to drill holes for the cable. I was terrified. When I rewired Barclays Bank in Paragon Square I found a hall-marked leather wallet behind an old desk. It was empty but I used it for many years and I still have it upstairs. I was rewiring the strong room and could not reach the ceiling so I stood on boxes of new £5 notes. I did the wires to the first cash machine in Hull. We all said no one would use it. I was also in charge of rewiring Silver Street, Unlaby Road, Holderness Road, Driffield Bank. Then I decided it was time for a change. Mac the boss was devastated. He offered to make me a partner but my mind was made up. After I left, Mac blackmailed me to set up the foot alarms at Bridlington Barclays Bank, by not giving me a reference for Butlin. I worked 3 summers at Beatles Filey, and 3 winters at YEB in Hull. Contrary to what most people thought, the work at Beatles was not chasing girls. Beatles was a self-contained small town of 10,000. We repaired everything from sewage pumps to fairground rides. Of course we had a few scams. Just near the electrician's workshop was a post office I used to post boxes of 25 light bulbs to my mum and dad. Jess, a friend from Hessel, worked in the kitchen. If I had a weekend off he smuggled a tray of fresh meat out of the kitchen and I would drop off half at his mum's and the rest at my mum. My first work at YEB was domestic, extra sockets, storage heaters etc. The engineer Dennis put me on industrial work. I know some of the lads were not happy about engineer Dennis Middleton putting me in charge of big projects like the Flume Tank, Melton Water, Hull Hospital for Women, Ideal Standard, etc. Dennis was the biggest rogue on the planet, constantly nicking for his govy jobs. One day he dropped me off at the old HRI to take out some switchgear he wanted. It was empty awaiting to be demolished so I was alone. It was really creepy. I was scared and I was glad when he picked me up. I remember every morning we all met in the workshop. We used to stock up with screws, tape, etc. I still have some left. When I worked at Hull Brewery I smuggled out bottles of dark in a Hilti case. Everyone had a daily ration of beer. Mine was 3 pints. Some of the draymen had horse-drawn carts, some had lorries, but they all drank their ration of 10 pints. After 3 winters Yeb gave me a permanent job at First It Power Factor Correction, Google it. Then they sent me to Leeds on a 12 weeks training course, nice hotel all expenses paid, to do live 415 volt cable jointing and 11 kV cable jointing. Unfortunately for Yeb, I had a job offer at double the money, so off I went again. So I started working for Holiday Hall Electrical Limited as an electrician. Monsanto Chemical Seal Sands plant. Seal Sands is on Teesside near Hartlepool. The whole area was a mass of construction sites. I shared a bed and breakfast room with 3 guys off the site in Seaton Hall Hotel. If the tide was out I could see the locals collecting sea coal on the beach. The top engineer Ted Garris was from Hull. When he walked around the site everyone squawked loud seagull calls. Most of the electricians were from the Newcastle area and hired vans to commute daily down the A19. It was known as the death run. Every time a crash was fatal the shop stewards called a half-day sympathy strike. They also called a half-day strike every Friday afternoon for a long weekend, but they also negotiated a £2,000 end-of-job bonus. Next I accepted a job offer from Holiday Hall on Sullom Voe, Shetland Isles. 6 weeks on 1 week off. I went to Woolworths and bought an enormous suitcase. Bad idea, pulled my back, lugging it about, I caught the train to Glasgow. As we approached Hessel station I had a little panic attack, but I soon got over it. Glasgow Central was close to the posh hotel where would do a 7-day training course. There were about 50 of us. Nobody left the hotel at night. Glasgow had a very bad reputation back then, We flew from Glasgow Airport to Sumburgh, Shetland. A 1-hour coach journey took us to the accommodation camp. I was given a nice room and told to get the bus to the electrician's workshop on the power station, tomorrow morning, After a T-bone steak dinner, I went to the bar. There were 3 bars: Welly Bar, Hilltop Bar, Cabaret Bar. I was quietly drinking my pint when some of my friends from Seal Sands came over and surprised me. They told me more friends were playing bingo in the big hall downstairs. Bingo! I could not believe it until they told me it was a £1,000 jackpot, I was happy to meet my friends. It's not much fun on your own on the biggest construction site in Europe, Caught the bus the next day. The power station was a sea of mud outside but dry inside. I was issued a locker, toolbox, overalls, waterproofs, warm coat and assigned to pyro work on the power station roof, followed by the fin fans, cooling for the turbines, I was moved to the main site after a few weeks, The main site was massive, around a mile across. Over the next 3 years I worked on most of it. Tank farm, jetties, pigging station. Pigs are sent through pipelines to clean them. Flare stack, metering, comma. The best job was the cable gang. There were 15 of us in a gang. The cables were laid in trenches like World War I trenches, sand at the bottom. We met at the workshop and then piled into Land Rovers and set off for today's trench. Some of the guys were hard-looking Geordies, but they had a soft spot of singing on the way to work. A favorite was, "The sun has got his hat on. Hip 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 hooray. The sun has got his hat on. And he's coming out today. Now we'll all be happy. Hip 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 hooray. The sun has got his hat on. And we are going out to play, comma." When we arrived and got set up, we picked up the cable and pulled when the foreman blew his whistle. Unfortunately, a few guys were sliders. They pretended to pull, but they just slid their hands along the cable. The foreman soon spotted a slider and transferred him to another job, comma. 10 a.m. was tea break time. There were 20 small canteens around the site. Everyone went to the nearest one. 2 girls gave us piping hot tea and digestive biscuits. We only had digestive biscuits for 3 years, comma. If the sun was out, we played games. My favorite was the egg and spoon race with eggs boiled by the canteen girls. After about 3 months on Shetland, I bought an old minivan, drove it to Aberdeen, caught the ferry St. Clair to Lerwick, Shetland. The ferry had sheep underneath the passengers. The smell was appalling. I drove it to Sullivvoe and arrived just in time for work, comma. With the van I could explore the island. I went to Gilshoff, a 4,000-year-old settlement at the southern tip of Shetland, comma. On a weekend I often went to Lerwick and had a look round the few shops, comma. With my friends I started fly fishing for brown trout after work. It was light until very late and loads of places to fish, comma. One night coming back from a fishing trip I came to a sharp bend and was horrified to see a car on the wrong side of the road coming straight at me. Instinctively I swerved and my trusty Mini stuck to the road like glue and missed. As we stopped we saw the other car upside down in a ditch smoking. We ran over and pulled the driver out. He was a local and very drunk but not hurt, so he set off to walk home, comma. Every last Tuesday in January Shetland commemorates its Viking history with a festival called Up Hellier, which culminates with the burning of a Viking longboat. 6 of us piled into the Mini and I drove to Lerwick to watch the burning boat. There was a wartime air base at Scatster quite close to the site. During the war Sunderland flying boats and RAF fighters were based there. BP renovated it and became the site airport. It was opened by an RAF jet doing a touch and go, comma.
As from my cottage bread, just at the dawning of the day, I met with a charming man. Just at the dawning of the day, I met with a charming man. to the spotted cow. Good morning to you with the said I. Good morning to you now. The maid replied, kind sir, she cried, I've lost my spotted cow. The maid replied, kind sir, she cried, I've lost my spotted cow. So to the spotted cow. To the spotted cow. To the spotted cow.